How's it going, guys, and welcome back to Retrospect, your go-to retro gaming podcast. You're listening to episode 47. Today, I'm excited because we are going to be talking about the future of handhelds. And joining me in the podcast, as always, we have the Wolf of Abbey Street, Brandon Saltalamacchia. What's up, dude?
This is an exciting one. You know, this was such a big topic that we couldn't do it alone. So we got in our handheld expert, Anthony Wallace. You may have seen him recently review. What did you review? The name of that handheld is just ridiculous.
Honestly, I couldn't even remember the name. I had to copy and paste it after writing the whole article. I called it the Max 3. It's the RGB 10 Max 3 Pro, I believe.
Oh my goodness.
Do you think this is like iPhone's fault, you know, like with all their weird Pro Max renaming stuff? They're like, we're going to do the same thing, just add some numbers to the front as well. Like, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible. Well, yeah, Anthony is back on. We were on last time, specifically talking about, oh gosh, what were you on for last time, Anthony? I'm trying to remember now.
His Game Boy game.
Oh, yes. I'm so sorry. Any more news on that front for the Mayor of Sanctuary?
I wish I knew.
Okay.
Still waiting.
Check in next time.
But the game is getting bigger while I'm waiting. So,
dude, don't do that, man. That's the mistake. It just keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then eventually it doesn't fit on a Game Boy cartridge anymore.
Yeah, we'll see.
You've got too much. But yeah, so today, like Brandon mentioned and Anthony mentioned, we're talking about the future of handhelds. But before we want to jump into the topic real quick, I wanted to mention that Card Gamer's been out now for, I don't know, 2 weeks? A week and a half?
Yeah.
And exciting things are happening over there. So if you guys haven't yet, go check out cardgamer.com. It's the sister site to Retro Dodo. And while you're at it, you know, Handheld History Volume 2 is still out there in the wild. If you want to pick up your copies, they're shipping in late winter this year, right?
Yeah,
Q4.
Correct.
So go ahead and get your copy of one of those. They're probably like, I think it's my favorite coffee table book that I've ever owned because it's so relevant to me as just a person who enjoys handhelds. And so this other one is the exact same thing except bigger and better. So check it out. You can just find that at retrododo.com. Or is there a specific URL that you throw out sometimes?
Yeah, you can head to handheldhistory.com. That will take you somewhere.
Nice. That'll take you somewhere, hopefully related to a handheld history.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, so let's jump into the main topic then. So the future of handhelds. We'll spend a majority of the podcast on this topic alone. And Anthony is actually... This topic came up because, Anthony, you're writing a piece on this idea right now, and I love the reach out from Brandon where he was just like, "Hey, I think we want to talk about this more because this is such a big topic. There's a lot of things that you could really kind of discuss when it comes to handhelds and all the things that kind of go into them." So, Anthony, I'll let you kind of lead the conversation here, and Brandon and I are just going to kind of listen to what you have to tell us. You know, you're going to regale us with your ideas, and then we're gonna listen to what you have to say. So, up on the first bullet point here. So you talked about the difference between creating incremental upgrades versus something that we didn't know we needed. So walk us into this a little bit.
Yeah. So I mean, this whole article that I'm writing just came from my genuine thoughts that I've been having lately of like, what do we need in the handheld scene? Because we keep getting these small changes and it's not something that we need. It's feeding into our desire to purchase something shiny and new. And I really don't know what needs to happen in the handheld scene to create some sort of new excitement because in a lot of ways, it kind of feels stagnant. You know, like the technology is almost to a point now where we basically have a handheld that can cover the entire range of retro systems. So whether you're looking to pretty much stick to Game Boy and Super Nintendo like I typically do, or you're someone who is still looking for something to play GameCube and PS2 well and stuff like that, there's kind of a handheld for all of that. And so since Brandon and I are seeing these things come out almost every other day, and we are reviewing these handhelds all the time, it's kind of like we're seeing the same thing over and over and over and over, but they're just literally just adjusting the sliders of, we can make it a little bigger or we can make it a little smaller or we can offer it in this color, but it's still essentially the same thing. And
Mm.
one problem that I think they have is that they're always going to be basing these machines, when we're talking about these emulation handhelds, not original hardware, which is something we might get into later, but with emulation handhelds, they're always going to be basing these on existing libraries of games. So
Mm-hmm.
the options of what we can play on these things is not really changing too much. There are people creating a handful of new games, like myself creating a Game Boy game, but for the most part, that library is not changing. So that's kind of a problem because they're always making a machine to play what we've already got.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's becoming quite a stagnant industry. So I think we're going to focus on retro handhelds for a minute here. Maybe like sub 150 probably is what we're talking about, maybe sub 200. And the industry is becoming very, very stagnant. It's the same thing over and over again. And even Funny Playing, which is quite a well-known marketplace, they launched their own handheld, and it was so bad that I didn't even want to review it. And it's the same stuff with some of Powkiddy's stuff. It just comes in, and the same with Anthony. We just haven't got time to review everything, and we don't want to review constantly bad stuff. So trying to find good handhelds that actually come out now is, it's not often. And even when there are new announcements, it's just something small as like, hey, we've got a transparent shell, or we're going to add Max to the name because it's got a slightly bigger screen. It's just very stagnant. And I think I wanted to do this podcast with Anthony because we don't really know where the future of handhelds are going to go in terms of retro devices, because everything's almost been done. We are kind of chipping towards GameCube emulation and, Dreamcast, which has become pretty much flawless now on most affordable handhelds, but there ain't really much else to go apart from PlayStation 2. But then you need a bigger screen, you kind of want longer battery life, you want a higher CPU, so then you're kind of touching on 150 plus. So yeah, I just feel like things are stagnating at the moment, and we can see that with all of the releases.
Mm. Yeah, it does seem like any update that does come out typically revolves around these smaller technological advances that have already existed for a while. So they'll go from not having Bluetooth to having Bluetooth, or they'll increase the actual Bluetooth technology so that it works with more devices. Or they'll add a mini HDMI out that allows you to port your game to a TV or something like that. So they're doing all these small incremental things that I think appeal to a lot of people. And Anthony, you mentioned this earlier, new shiny things. That is a market that they can continue to capitalize on because everyone wants the newest shiny thing. And especially if it's not that much more expensive, they're like, oh, it's only $80 or $100, whatever. I can sell my old one and get this newest one that's coming out in a week. And 2 weeks later, there'll be a new one that I can do the same thing with. So it's this kind of buy, sell, trade, or upgrade mentality that they've probably forced in some regard. Some people probably are hanging on to all of these handhelds. I'm sure you guys have just a bin of all these handhelds just laying around. But for me, the shiny thing that works. It works sometimes. But I have only bought 2 retro handhelds, whereas you guys have seen a lot of these come through. So I'm sure your outlook is very different than mine. But yeah, the increments in that they're upgrading, and at the rate that they're releasing these is just insane. There's a lot going on.
There's a
Even
really big. Sorry,
Go on,
Brandon, go
Anthony.
ahead.
I was going to say, even the larger market, like the handheld PC, this one came in a week ago. It's the Neo 2S. Soon it's going to be the Neo RGB 2S Max Pro, and
Yep.
these are $1,000 handhelds. So the market is struggling because a lot of these companies only drive revenue through hardware, so they continuously need to come up with a crappy upgrade to kind of grab attention.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was about to say, was that how Brandon and I have been talking about how these companies are based entirely on the hardware. they don't have the software there to help supplement the cost of them producing these, and then the very small amount of money they're going to make selling it. So it does benefit them to just keep releasing devices. Whereas a company like Nintendo or a company like Valve with the Steam Deck, there's so much money coming in because of all the software that they also have, that they don't have to keep releasing devices every 2 months. So
I guess the closest thing to that in like small handheld form is the Playdate. These guys are doing quite well with software games and stuff that you can buy for a couple of bucks. They're keeping it updated. What they're doing is really, really cool, and I would love to see this in the affordable retro gaming niche, but it's hard to, because everyone wants to play licensed games. But I feel like Playdate are probably the only ones innovating at the moment in the sub. Are they even sub 200 anymore? I heard they had a
No.
Oh man,
I think they're close to 300. Well, actually,
199.
Yeah, 199 plus tax.
Yeah, true, and shipping.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is really cool. I think I've been playing around with some of their new games, and it's really interesting. It's just a shame about the whole screen and backlit stuff, but I know that's their quirk.
Well, and the Playdate is still, you have to pre-order those still. I don't think they can just ship those out yet. So they're doing them in bulk orders, I guess. So, or they're just doing them in those batch cycles. So yeah, if I go to their website right now, it just says pre-order, and I'm like, dang it.
Late 2023, yeah, Jesus.
I wanted to support it and I wanted to buy it because that's one of the few areas in this whole scene where there is original content being created. And like you said, I saw a pre-order coming who knows when, and I'm just like, I'm not going to just wait around for this thing. So I'm going to wait for the version 2 with a backlit screen. So it's like,
it's
like, what are we doing?
Do you think the backlit screen will be still the pixelated, black and white graphics just with a light behind it?
That's what I'm hoping. Yeah. Cause I think that's what they should have done the first time around. And, I wanted this device to succeed, and I want this to be, maybe spoiler alert to what we're going to talk about. But to me, that's one of the best examples of someone doing something new and different. Mm-hmm. And then also offering new original content. But it didn't pick up because the price and the availability. And I think they made a couple big mistakes with the design, but
yeah. I mean, yeah, it reviewed well, I think, at a lot of outlets. I know a lot of people were talking about it when it first launched. But I think it hasn't been super easy to get your hands on one. And there's a concern of how long it's going to be supported. Because right now, I think a lot of the games are individual developer supported. Like, people can upload their own stuff to the actual Playdate library, and you can download those. And I think when you get the Playdate, what's cool about it, right, is that every week or every month, there's new games that kind of get loaded to your Playdate if you have it connected to the Wi-Fi. And so it'll be like this little oh, I have a new package I can unwrap. And so you have something else to mess around with. But Anthony, you mentioned also Pico 8 as a sort of another developer, another company that's doing a bit more with their software.
The cool thing about Pico 8 is it's a giant library of free games that is new original content that still pretty much fits within the retro genre. These are obviously new games, but a lot of them are like remakes of past games or their own take of, it's platforming games, it's little puzzling games, but you can play Pico 8 on most of these emulators now. And that library of games is available for free online. So with a little bit of searching, you can find some really cool games. I was just looking at their library last night again, and you could find some games on itch.io. You could find some stuff on the Pico 8 website, and it plays on these emulators right now. So
so you're making your own Game Boy game, and there's been tons in the past that's recently been created from independent developers. Is there a place online where people can go in and download these games, almost like a library of independent developers creating games that you can just go through and maybe even like tip or buy them for these handheld emulators. I'm just thinking it from a business perspective. Like the Playdate does it so well because you feel like you're supporting creators, and then more creators start building stuff, and the handheld gets better and better over time. But with the handheld industry, people are just ripping ROMs left, right, and center, which is fair enough. They're hard to get hold of from Nintendo. But if there is a marketplace where, you know, creators that are just building homebrew games can go to and pay $5 and that goes straight to the creator, you download the ROM, put it on your hardware. Is that a thing?
The best version of that we have is called itch.io, and that is a place where you can find a lot of free games, and also some people do charge you a couple dollars for their games, and then a lot of people do a name your own price. So it's essentially a tip from PayPal that you can offer. So when I see some like cool Game Boy games come out, even if I play the game or not, I'll send them $10 because I know what it's like to sit there and make a game and spend all that time and then put it up for free. And it makes your day to see a $10 tip come in. So
yeah,
I'll send $10, $20 tips to people when I buy their game. But a lot of them are free. There are some games that are $4 or $5, and a lot of people are reluctant to pay that much. So it's tough.
Do you think that's a result of, I think, the past couple of years of mobile game stores? I think people associate cheaper prices with potentially like a lower quality experience. You know, if I go on the Apple store right now and I go to the arcade, there's millions and millions of games available, and sometimes it's hard to even know. Like, I think curation is actually what I'm trying to get out here. Like there's maybe to what you're describing, itch.io I think does have a good curation system already set in place, probably better than what Nintendo Switch offers right now in terms of finding the games that are actually like worth checking out. But Apple for the longest time had this issue where people were just throwing just junk up on there, and I think it's probably given a lot of us PTSD, or like it's scarred us to like see all these games and just distrust all of them because you're just like, I don't know what that even is. I've never even heard about this game before. It looks cool, but it probably is garbage, or it's probably filled with microtransactions, so I'm not even going to download it. Like for me, like that's the apprehension I have for a huge store of like unknown games, you know, whereas something from a Nintendo store, you know what you're getting. You're like, okay, if they've at least made it on here, they probably are like a bit of a more well-known developer. But now that I'm saying even that, I don't know if I believe that either, because the Nintendo Switch store
Maybe not
is
on
full
Nintendo,
of trash, dude. Like I was scrolling through some of that stuff and I was like, what is this? So you know what? Never mind. Game libraries are just a mess in general, and we have to figure out how to wade through them to find the golden stuff. Disregard what I said.
I mean, to toot our own horn a little bit, we have a lot of lists of like the best games, including, you know, I made a list of my favorite Pico 8 games about a year ago for Retro Dodo. So there's a lot of places you can go to look for those sort of like top 10 list of, so you don't have to go through the 2000 yourself. You can just know the 10 that you should try first. So
yeah. Don't use the actual lists. Go to retrododo.com and use those lists. That's where you should be going. Don't go to the store.
We need to update them, to be fair.
Well, yeah, because at one point I went through the entire Pico 8 library.
You're a maniac.
Pretty much tested all of them. So that's kind of what we do. You know, that's our work.
So another thing you mentioned is the hardware being held back a little bit by optimizing for just existing retro content versus new original content. So thinking it back to that original question or that idea, what do you think is the best approach, or like what is your preferred? Do you prefer new original content? Like, or is that what you're saying? Like, you would rather companies just focus on that now instead of optimizing for existing retro content?
That's a tough question, because there's always going to be a market for retro handhelds, because, you know, we're all excited about retro games, so we do want to play these games. So, you know, we're always looking for devices that are trying to be this.
Yep.
You know, the modern version of that. So you're not going to you're not going to innovate too much in terms of the actual device, the controls, because you're replicating what existed.
Mm-hmm.
So there's always going to be a market for this, but where I think things could be exciting is creating something new. And that's the tough, that's the $1 million question is what do we need to be made that's going to be exciting?
Right.
What do you think? So I'm trying to think. What do you think the last retro handheld in the space that was the one that innovated in a way? And for me personally, I can ask you both this question. It's probably, and it wasn't even that innovative, but the Mayu Mini, the original, the one that came out kind of super affordable, crispy screen, very basic, clean OS, that was just easy to understand and get used to. I think that was the one, and it wasn't even like game changing in a way. It was just these minor changes that go, shit, this is actually kind of what I wanted all along. And I think something else, like you said, Anthony, needs to come out and do that again. Like I think Go Retroid tried that with the pocket flip here. Like this looks cool. You see it, you go, wow, that's fun. But you go, actually, this is pretty big. This is pretty big. You know, it can do like PlayStation 1 and Dreamcast, but like that in my pocket, oof, dang.
And they're trying to emulate this.
Yep.
And this works because of the size, because this one has the dual screen, so it's making use of the space. This was smaller, so it makes good use of the space. I didn't think that the Retroid Flip did something we needed because
agreed.
You had a lot of wasted space. I'm much more excited about the Miyu Flip, which we've seen concepts for, because they're trying to do this.
Yeah.
They're making full use of this space, and they're offering us a device that is the new version of this. But I don't know, the whole flip concept is the hot thing right now that they're trying to push to. They're attempting to do something new and innovative in the handheld scene. So the flip concept is currently the thing that they're trying. I don't know if it's working, but that's what they're trying.
So that does kind of lead into our topic, and I have a similar thought. So like we were talking about like gimmicks particularly, or just a new console idea that would potentially push the needle forward a bit more than where we're at right now. And for me, it does come down to that form factor. I think Brandon, you mentioning the Mayu, that's what got me in the first place too. Is I saw just how small and pocketable that thing was and how well regarded it was. People are like, this thing works well and it's so portable. Like it's just, this is a neat size that hasn't existed in this space that performs at this level. So for me, I was like, that's it. I'm in. I love that idea. And it's brought me back into this whole space of retro emulation that I really hadn't thought about much since or before then. And so for me, I think the form factor is the biggest factor in determining how well it's going to be adopted by the market. You have tiny, portable, you have middle of the road. So like Mayu is tiny, portable, or even smaller. They have the Fun Key. I don't know what that little tiny thing is. And then you have, your RG35s, like closer to the Game Boy size. You have your analog pockets that are literally the exact same size almost as like the Game Boy. And then you have these giant boys coming out that are more like the Steam Deck.
Yeah.
At this point, where it's like, or the Switch, so it's like small, medium, large. What do you want? Is portability important to you? Yeah, you guys are holding so many emulators up right now. It's insane.
I need to get like a long coat that's just filled with handhelds. Like, who wants to play?
Do you see?
That's what I'm like when I go to the coffee shop. I got a bag with me that's got 5 or 6.
Dude, they're probably always a little bit nervous when they see you guys walk in with all those handhelds. They're like, "What do these guys have in their bags? Like, what are these? Like, what is going on right now?" Like, oh, okay.
Well, when they come out, it gets a lot of smiles, and that's a big part of why I do that.
Like,
because then you might inspire somebody to pick one of these up one day. So
that's right, and then they'll read Retro Dodo content. It's all guerrilla marketing.
Circle of life, baby.
I get it. I love it. But yeah, I think form factor has got to be the biggest thing, right? I mean, for me, I need something that fills this space that is pocketable that I can take with me. And although I love this Switch, it's still not something that I feel like I can take with me easily all the time, right? You know, if we're talking about that size, Steam Deck is in the same boat. All of the A and Neo larger models are just like that as well, where it's like I'm not really going to whip this thing out and bring it with me unless like I'm making an intentional decision to like sit down somewhere and play this.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Is that the same thing for you guys, or are there like any other gimmicks that you guys are thinking of that would be like this is what's going to move the needle forward?
I think
Well,
you're right there in terms of like you've got your handhelds which can fit in your pocket. They're like your everyday carry. You can go to the shops, take it. You can sit on a train, take it. But then you got the ones that you have to put in your bag that kind of are more towards like long travel and home gaming. Really, I think there's like
Yeah.
two categories. And the Mayu Mini absolutely dominates the pocket-friendly market, and then you're probably like focusing more towards the Retroid Pocket 3 Plus, which dominates the in your bag at home. And then if you want to get real serious, then you're looking at the Steam Deck.
Mm-hmm. Anthony.
yeah, the whole topic of a gimmick is tough. I mean, that word has some negative connotations to it. So it's like
Gimmick.
the
Too tiny.
the gimmick there is that it's so small. The gimmick of a hand crank on a play date is interesting because that offers a new way to play a game, and then you also need to offer new games that use it. So, like I was saying, it's the $1,000,000 question of how, like, what's the gimmick you can come up with that people will actually bite on and really need, you know, like, okay, I have to have that. And the conclusion that I came to when I was writing my article is that we already got the perfect gaming device, but we just don't give it the love it. Well, maybe we do. The numbers give it the love, but we already have the perfect gaming device.
Yeah. He's
They
holding up a
came
Nintendo Switch for the listeners.
they came up with the gimmick. It's not home, it's not handheld, it's in the middle. And this plays the old retro games. They have the Nintendo Switch Online library. You can hack it if you really wanted to. It has a whole library of new content.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful. There's the big version and the small version. The light is almost pocketable. But this, you know, while like the sales say that we appreciate it, but I don't know if anyone's calling that the perfect handheld.
It's close. I think it's close, isn't it? Like it's close to flawless. And I don't want to say that, but it really is. And Nintendo's marketing team has done. They've probably put millions into researching what the market wants and what is the perfect handheld, and that is it. But I think going smaller. I think if we go back a little bit, for me, the Game Boy Advance was like the perfect size, and I think that's going to be the perfect size for future retro handhelds. You know, pocketable, but a big enough screen to play maybe your PlayStation 1 games. And if you put all that into an incredible form factor, preferably metal, with a good screen, long battery life, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and a good OS, I think that's what I want. You know,
you had that list like memorized, like all like the basics that need to exist in a handheld: Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and a good OS.
And I want this in a metal shell.
That's a really good one as well. You know, that got all the credit it deserved. That was the RG351V.
Yeah, my number one console.
Did you guys ever have a PlayStation Vita?
I never did.
I had the OG PSP, never the Vita.
Man, all right. So I might ruffle some feathers here, but I feel like Sony was really onto something with the Vita. I really do feel like they put so much into that handheld, and it just died because there wasn't enough software to support it.
Mm-hmm.
So, because they did like, in terms of graphically what it could do, all of the specs. It had an OLED screen. It was beautiful. It had 2 analog joysticks on it. Like, form factor was a little rough because it was smaller. Like, it was about the size, of the OG Game Boy Advance, you know. But it had shoulder buttons. It had a back touch panel. It had the screen was touch as well. So it had 2 touch screens, front and back. and they packed so much tech into that thing, and it just died. So like part of me is sad that that happened, but it makes me question as to why did that happen? Why didn't it get the support that it needed? And maybe it was just because of the time that it was released. I
Didn't
don't
they
know.
they went digital a bit too quickly, right? Maybe just before the market cracked on.
Probably that. They still had the cartridge based, like Switch sized, games that you'd put in there.
Mm-hmm.
So that was even before the Switch came out, but I think they just didn't have the support, and I think people just weren't ready to develop for that kind of system. They're like, this can do a lot, but if I want to develop for this, it's going to hold me back from developing, on the PlayStation 3 or the
Yep.
PlayStation 4, whenever that system came out. So yeah, I have a real soft spot for the Vita because it was a great size and it was just great technologically. Like things just look so good on that game, on that system, and it also had crossplay or remote play, so you could play games on your PS4 on the Vita, and like the delay was almost non-existent. So I played a lot of like Persona 5 on
Oh
my
yeah.
Vita because it worked so well. So I would just be like grinding out like dungeons while my wife was like watching something on the TV on my Vita, and I was like, yeah, this is great. And that was
Mm.
before the Switch was out, so I don't know, something like that. But the gimmick thing, kind of to your point, Anthony, it has a negative connotation. We've done the dual screens, we have the detachable remotes, we have the thing that lets us port the game to the TV. So how do
Where
we
next?
how do we discern what the next, not gimmick is, but like what is the next thing
Yeah.
that's going to be like, oh yeah, do you have any ideas or anything you've been thinking of?
Yeah, well,
Great.
unfortunately, like there's not going to be a good conclusion today. It's going to take a company to take a risk like Playdate did and just try something totally new. And I think Playdate was close. I think they just messed up with that screen, and it sucks because they don't have the numbers to just have those ready for you to buy. So
And
Mhm.
if they were to make a second iteration, that's going to be 3, 4, 5 years away because they're dealing with still keeping the orders coming. And you don't want to piss off people who've pre ordered the first one and be like, hey, there's the new one coming with a better screen. We're going to do an Ambernick on your ass.
yeah, Ambernick and Retroid can do that.
Yeah.
I haven't gotten my first one yet.
Yeah, so I think you're right. They did, and they've done an awesome job. Big up to them. I think it was a very hard thing to do in this current industry. But looking at the bigger picture, like where it can go in terms of mainstream handhelds, like the Steam Deck, portable PCs, Nintendo Switch, I think eventually, I don't know when we'll see it, there's going to be some kind of integration with AR, VR. However you do
Mhm.
that, even if it's strapping it to your face or there's some kind of upgrades or something, that's the that's where entertainment is moving. We've been talking about this for like 10 years, but things are, speeding up with, the meta quest and all of that. So I think Nintendo need to. I don't think Nintendo are going to be first to do it, but they're definitely eventually going to do it somehow. Like having an all-round home console, a portable console, and a VR console in one. I
Mhm.
think they'd be silly not to do that. I just can't. Like I can picture me just strapping a Nintendo Switch to my face and being in like Pokemon Snap and just being in a world of Pokemon. Like sign me up, baby.
You can already
That's what I
do
think.
that, bro. Didn't you get the Nintendo cardboard or the Nintendo Labo set that
That
had
was
like that
disgusting.
allowed you
Yeah.
to slide the Switch in front
That was so shit.
of it?
Like I remember I was at Games Radar and they got it into review and they're like, "This is incredible! I've made a fishing rod out of cardboard." And I was like, "This
Hey,
is
man.
shit! What the hell?"
Dude, you know what that like thinking back on Nintendo Labo or Labo, however it's pronounced. I think that was all an attempt to prototype, like cheaply prototype a bunch of ideas that they had. Like we're just gonna
Oh,
make
so instead of bringing out like hardcore accessories, they were like, "Let's just
Yep.
start with cardboard."
Let's start with cardboard, see how people like it. Let's just throw it out there and see if people engage with it. And some people liked it. People with kids were really into that because it was like more of a STEM project for them. They would just like design the stuff and then see how it worked. But yeah, I don't think that's the route that they're going to go. But I don't know if I want this or not. I know we have improved screen technology that can roll up or that can like fold in half. But I think again, like it comes back to that portability element for me. So like I like the Switch. I would bring it more places if it were just a bit more portable. And I don't like the small size of the Switch Lite because I have giant hands. So I need something that kind of fits right in the middle of that, where it's like it fits both the needs, but the screen can do something that collapses, rolls up, does whatever, and then I can like flop it open and play Nintendo games somewhere on a bigger screen.
Going smaller devices, smaller screens on new game content is tough because you need to be able to see so much stuff on screen. So that's why new content needs to be created that's formatted for smaller screens, if that's what we're going to go towards.
The smaller screens.
That's why Game Boy worked so well, is because the graphics are so simple and clean, and it looks great on a small screen. You know, I think the original was 2.8 inches or something, and it worked.
Anthony, you wrote about the leak, the Nintendo Switch 2 Pro Max RGB2S leak. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think the next Nintendo Switch 2 is going to have?
That's another tough question. I'm not convinced it's going to be a Switch 2. But I was talking to someone about this yesterday, and I think that if Nintendo does it right, they will release a home console and a new Switch at the same time that work together. It's almost like a much more portable dock, so that you can have better quality gaming closer to a PS5 and Xbox. Nintendo's probably not going to go that powerful anyways. They know their lane. But allowing for these games to play super well, you know, Tears of the Kingdom to just be super, super high definition. And then also the Switch 2 or whatever, the Switch Pro, whatever it is, the content can fall back to that and still play well. But I don't know. And we don't know
if 4K? Like 4K gaming?
On the TV maybe, but we don't need 4K in handheld.
No, there's no way.
But we don't know for sure it's going to be another Switch. They made the Switch, and the Switch was a success. Maybe they're going to try something different again. So we don't know.
As much as I want a new Switch, I don't think the market needs it. Like, it's still a superb console that can do most things. Admittedly, like, I had quite a few bugs with Zelda, and I had the OLED. I'm saying with Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Jesus.
What bugs have you run into in Zelda?
Just super clunky. When I'm like transforming weapons and stuff, the frame rates goes like below 20.
Oh, okay.
And it was like consistent.
Is that on handheld?
Yeah.
I've been playing it almost exclusively docked, so I've only run into like maybe one time where I had sort of like what felt like a bug, but definitely a lot of pop in with the textures and stuff. Or like bad. If you fly into someone's room, there's going to be no furniture for a second.
Whoa! This is a unique living situation. Yeah, I've also been playing docked the entire time, and I haven't noticed anything major. Because I don't know. Once you play on like the big screen and you like just get to see all that stuff, you do lose a little bit when you switch over to handheld. But I remember,
and the Pro controller feels so good,
so nice. And I think when the original Zelda came out, I remember there was issues with frame rate, and someone was saying that actually if you played in handheld, the frame rate was better because it was porting down to 720 instead of trying to run at 1080 or something like that. So I don't know. I digress. But to the previous point where we were talking about like the Switch 2, I don't think they can go away from the Switch idea anymore. Like they're kind of locked into this whatever technology exists in all the homes right now. So we have TVs and we have multiple family members that might want to play independently. The Switch is the really true only solution for that kind of method right now. Like maybe eventually, like Brandon was saying, like if AR VR really does take off and it doesn't cost $3,500 for a headset like Apple's, maybe I could see like everyone having one of those, and Nintendo has like a just their NSO service that is so robust that can just be ported to any of those AR VR headsets, and it allows you to play those games in those headsets. Like that would be amazing. But I think for everything else right now, like the Switch 2 is just going to be a better version of the Switch. It's just going to probably be able to run a bit better graphics, more consistent frames, maybe upgraded Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and then 4K output onto the TV. Like it's not going to be anything massive, I don't think. And I'm praying or hoping for better ergonomics. That would be my dream. Better ergonomics just when it is in handheld mode. Because I have that.
I talked about that yesterday too. It's tough because then if you try to add grips to this, you lose a lot of the portability, and you lose sort of like this idea.
Mm-hmm.
If it's got a big ergonomic grip attached. So if they created a real simple solution to attach an ergonomic grip,
mm-hmm.
and then probably go the Pimax solution for these controllers to maybe magnet in instead of slide in.
Ooh, that's
fancy.
Nice. That's nice.
Yeah, I mean,
very
I wasn't sure how this was going to work out, because I thought when I held this thing, I would get a lot of this, like the flex, but you have to go pretty hard to do that. You don't feel that when you're playing this. So this is kind of nice. So Switch 2 could do that.
I wonder how long until those batteries wear out, though. And then that thing just falls apart. You're just on the train like, oh, dang it. My screen fell off. That'd be a terrible time.
Got a floppy handheld.
Yeah. This thing ain't working no more. Well, so we haven't really answered the question of the future of handhelds.
No, and we're not going to, because
we're never going to.
If we could, we'd be millionaires, but
I know, man. There is such potential. That is what it comes back to. There's just something that needs to hit, and it will hit. I just don't know who's going to do it, and it doesn't seem like the current showrunners in the handheld space are really going to try and launch for something like that, because again, their whole benefit is just selling the consoles as many as they can, and then doing it again over and over and over again.
And making consoles that play these existing systems. So you're always making a handheld that can do what one of these does.
Right, exactly.
You're not gonna innovate the peripheral, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that gimmick concept of you got to create something new, and you have to have the new content to fit it. So it's the emulation scene is not going to do it. It has to be someone like Playdate to create something new.
It's on you, Playdate. Maybe Analog too.
Analog, yeah, I was going to say Analog are quite good at that, but their premium price tag is just ridiculous.
Yeah, it's up there. All right. Well, any closing thoughts or things we didn't mention before we end the show?
No.
This wasn't as good as we thought.
Has someone modded it yet? Someone's bound to have modded it.
Not the Nuggy Boy. Not the Nuggy Boy.
Yeah, someone put like a cheap Nintendo emulator in these, but not worth it.
Listen, for a McDonald's toy, it's totally passable. Okay,
and that cost somebody $4. It cost me about $70 to get 4 of them. But
oof! But you can say that you have them, and you can resell them potentially for a bit more.
Maybe. I'm giving them away for free to my friends.
Oh, good guy, Anthony. Giving away the Nuggy Boy that wasn't that cool.
Yeah, it's just a collector's item.
You can just have this nugget. That's awesome. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for listening in. What are your thoughts on the future of handhelds? Is there a perfect handheld out there that you think fits the bill? Let us know by writing into Retrospect at retrododo.com or commenting on your preferred listening channel. And before we close out, Anthony, where can folks find you on the interwebs?
Instagram, Nara Makes Games. Twitter, Nara Makes Games. YouTube, Nara Makes Games.
All the places. Brandon?
Yeah.
Retro_Dodo everywhere.
Everywhere. And for me, it's BITBLOGGIST. Until then, catch you in the next episode.